So thanks everyone for coming in. Excited to spend this time with you. Conversation today is about sales, and it's about sales as an act of mindfulness, which is maybe not the way you typically think of the sales encounter. Maybe as a buyer, you've seen people selling to you in a way that doesn't feel mindful or comfortable. And for you as a salesperson, a lot of people that I work with at Costco, they come to us and they are entrepreneurs, small business owners, where they're working with clients, and that means that they are in the position to have to sell, but they're not necessarily a natural salesperson. So I think this is primarily this content is really for you because my vision for the sales encounter is not one that you have to have the right set of answers and ways of interacting, but rather your presence and preparation with your clients is going to make the difference. So let's get into it. Throughout the time, if you have a question, feel free to put it in the Q&A, and we'll have some time to get to it at the end. And then we'll also have a time to practice some of this together. So I hope you can join with me throughout this. I'm going to target 30 minutes. We might even be a little faster because we're only going to cover the first part of our time. So I'll give you this overall framework here in a second, and then we'll conclude with some next steps. All right. Let me start. I haven't done this before in these webinars, so let me just introduce my family and myself a little bit, which might be helpful. This is my family here that I love. I've been married to Ariel for 20 years, and our kids are now about a year old photo, but they're 17 and 13 years old, and I love them. They're growing. In terms of myself, I also love doing sports and games with people. So pickleball, tennis, workouts, softball, running. Just I can't get enough of it, really. I love it intrinsically. And then very interested in art and music. And so I have a lot of vinyl records and this kind of stuff. I'm interested in gardening, things that slow me down, I guess. I tend to be a pretty wound up person, for those of you that know me. So that's I like to try to find the yin to my yang. And then mind, I'm really interested in reading. I studied literature. I read a lot of books. And love what we get to do here at Casa, which is solving problems with clients. So that's me. Enough of that. Let's talk about intention setting. So a lot of what we're doing, this is sort of a meta-analysis. I'd like you to set an intention right now for this time together that you can be fully present. Just try to ground yourself and be present with us together. I know you're off in the other end of the world somewhere, but just try to take this time to let the distractions go away and continue to be engaged and ask questions and share your thoughts throughout. And be open to new narratives. I think I was talking about this last night with my book club buddies. We get caught in these narratives of who we are. And I think one of those big narratives is I am a salesperson or I'm not a salesperson. And for entrepreneurs, we all are in sales. We're doing it. So I'd like it if you could be open to the fact that you are actually great at sales, and this is for you. So I think if you're here, there's a reason for it, and it's for you. All right. Let's talk about some myths of sales. So I've been doing sales for a long time. What people typically think of is the Glenn Ross version of someone who's trying to close you, always be closing. They're someone trying to convince you to take an action. In that movie, in that play, I guess originally the Mammoth play, they're trying to convince people to buy real estate that they don't want. It's the oceanfront property in Arizona, right? And that's a myth. People don't buy things that they don't want, and we shouldn't be obviously ethically doing that, which none of you, I'm assuming, would be doing that if you were on a call like this. It's also a myth that sales is about how strong the salesperson is, or that the salesperson needs to have the right information and knowledge in order to have success. In fact, the salesperson doesn't matter at all. The salesperson is actually a non-event, or what do the kids call it? A non-playing, character. They're not. The role of the salesperson is to enable the decision-making power of the buyer. to help them make better decisions, and you're there to help support that. It's not about your product, it's not about your service, it's not about what you do, but it's about them and their goals and their advancement. So we're really focusing our time on the customer, that this is about a customer orientation. So what is mindfulness? Mindfulness is when we start to see the world and ourselves and are aware. It's bringing awareness to what we're doing. So it allows us to drop the illusion that we're a distinct ego. I, me, mine, as George Harrison wrote in the Let It Be album for the Beatles, and we recognize that instead we're a series of atoms, and we're in a mutual existence with fellowing suffering beings. We're next to people, we're loving them, and we're trying to recognize that our sense of self is actually an illusion. Instead, we're being aware of other people and their needs. So we have a framework for doing that, and we have a framework for doing that in the context of our business development purposes. So what we're going to focus on the right is mindfulness, and there's 3 C's. And so today we're just going to talk about compassion, but the 3 C's of mindfulness is compassion, curiosity, and courage. This is a CASA framework. And we're combining that with the sales actions that we need to close business, which is preparation, presentation, and proposal. So the 3 P's meet the 3 C's. So everything is centered around the customer in our sales journey. And we're starting with our preparation for the sales encounter. So the first thing we do before we sell is we get ready for that sales encounter. So what we're going to talk about today is how do you prepare for a sales meeting? And we're going to do that with compassion. On our next session in a couple of weeks, which I hope you can join, we're going to talk about how you can use curiosity when you're actually in the meeting, in the sales presentation, and then finally courage when you go to propose the work that you want to do or your solution for the customer. Okay, great. So we're going to talk about compassion today. So compassion, for one, is it connects. We're going to do a little guided meditation and talk about setting intentions. Okay, so connection. No sale is made, I would argue, without some kind of connection. You're connecting to the person, you're connecting to the buyer, and you're helping them to realize what they really need in order to advance their goals. So what you're trying to do is help them see their decision making clearly so they can make a better decision. And to do that, you want to connect with them, connect with what their situation is. Now, the cool thing about compassion is it has this really cool benefits of releasing of oxytocin, which is a hormone in the brain and body that releases and makes us actually feel more connected. So when we exhibit compassion, we ourselves are more connected to those that we're the objects of our interest and compassion. And they, on the other hand, are also being able to receive that. They're going to notice that we care about them, and they're going to feel that connection with us. So it's a beautiful thing that happens all through the act of compassion. So in review, you can't have a sale without connection, and compassion is actually a shortcut to connection. So therefore, compassion at some level is needed for sales. So we're talking about the orientation of the customer. Everything that we do in sales should be about the customer. It's often not. When we think about, again, the popular myths that I talked about, salespeople often will forget about the customer and just think about themselves, their quota, their interest, their revenue that they're trying to achieve. But most salespeople are focused on that and their own intelligence and their own needs. But instead, we want to put it on them. Now, we talked about this myth of knowledge. You might want to have a degree of knowledge about your customer. It does not hurt you. It's even necessary in some cases if you're going to sell something that you know something about it, right? But it's not sufficient for you to know something about your customer or about their needs. That doesn't mean that you're going to actually have your customer get the advancement and feel the connection that you need for them to advance their goals. There's a kind of a cliche phrase out there that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think that's really important here, which is that when you're talking to someone about their sales encounter, you want to make sure that you're demonstrating first and foremost that you connect to them as a person and as a business owner, leader, and a buyer of potential services that you're selling. Okay, So let's start to put this into action and think about what this looks like. So I'm going to play for you a little bit of intention setting to get our minds in the right place, and then I'm going to actually lead us in a collective uh, mindfulness moment, which you'll be able to do from wherever you are, and hopefully that'll be helpful at putting this into practice so that you can think about this for your next sales encounter. So if you had only a few minutes to prepare for a sales meeting, and maybe right now would be a good time for you to think about upcoming sales meetings that you have, or if you're strictly out of sales and that doesn't feel relevant to you, you can think about any meeting you have coming up, because really every meeting is an opportunity for you to demonstrate compassion and help your other party gain benefit. So think about that person that you're meeting with at that meeting that's coming up, and I want you to think about their needs. I want you to think about their situation and their challenges that they're facing. What keeps them up at night? What gets them up in the morning? What are they excited about? What are they frightened about? What are they facing in their life? And how might your service potentially provide them progress? Your product or your service help them get advancement against those goals or challenges that they're facing. Okay. Now, this is a guy who I love a lot. I mentioned I'm really into music, and he's written a book called The Creative Act of Being, which I've read. You see my bookmark. I read most of it. Rick Rubin. So Rick Rubin is a music producer. He's worked with everyone from Jay-Z to Johnny Cash and the Beastie Boys and uh, uh, Run DMC and just great bands, System of a Down. He's done a lot, and he is also sort of a mindfulness leader in this book. That if you check it out, he's really talking about creation as a way of being and of focusing. And I would say the same thing applies to sales. So I'm going to play for us all a clip of him talking on the Ezra Klein show, the podcast. It's a New York Times podcast where he's being interviewed by Ezra. And I want to make sure y'all can hear the audio. So if there's an audio challenge, raise your hand, and we'll make sure to fix that.
Artists you've worked with or the people you've learned from have you seen as a ritual of awareness that might to someone else simply look like living or habit or routine?
The first one that comes to mind is not one of awareness, it's of connection. And it was right before we started this together. I did a ritual for us where I imagined my higher self. I envisioned my higher self floating above me. And I envisioned you, and I envisioned your higher self floating above you. And then my higher self and your higher self embraced and agreed that we would work together to bring forth the best information that would be helpful to others. Now, you didn't know about that when we started, but that was something I did for myself with the idea of that's the outcome that I'm hoping for. And that little ritual probably had some impact on me. It may have had impact on you. I can't say. I don't know. But I know that it's like setting an intention. When you set an intention, like belief, it has power. So I come into this conversation with a sense of connection with you, an imaginary sense of connection with you, in the hopes that that'll be beneficial to what we're doing together today. That's one example of a ritual.
Awesome. So I think we're opening the chat, and go ahead and if there are comments or thoughts on that, feel free to jive that in and put in what you're thinking. I want to also give Brittany host duties here. So I think, there you go, make co-host. So what I love about that is a couple things. And again, feel free to chat your thoughts. One is that he is doing the work on his side and recognizing that it may or may not make a difference to the interlocutor. In other words, Ruben was saying, I did this preparation, this mental image of connection, of setting the intention that his higher self would connect with the higher self of um, of Ezra, and that they would be able to find this connection, and that that connection would be meaningful to others. And I just think that's a beautiful thing. When we're in the world of selling our service or product, ultimately what we're trying to do, and this is why I think sales is actually a higher calling than people tend to let it. Thank you, other Brittany Elmore, on that comment. Yeah, it's sales is a beautiful thing because what we're doing is we're actually finding a connection where we're trying to help people with their lives, and that's what we're here for. So I want to reground myself before I meet with somebody, that if there's an opportunity that I can be helpful to them, that's why I'm here. Not to make money, not to hit my quota or grow my revenue, but really to help them with their world, their business, with what I can do. So what I'd like to do now is take a second with y'all and center that and have a little mindfulness moment here together, that I'll lead. So I'm going to lead this time, and then we'll close with some Q&A and next steps for the kind of preview of the coming components of this. So if you're at work right now or at home and you're in a place you can do this, and take a second, I'd encourage you to maybe close your eyes and just sort of let the distractions of everything else move to the side for a second. And I'll try to do the same as I lead this. And what I would like you to do is we'll just start with some kind of basic breath work, and then I'm going to guide you into thinking about this sales encounter. So I asked you a moment ago to think about someone that you're going to be meeting with soon. And I'd like you to put that person in the forefront of your mind and harness and start to cultivate the compassion for them and their situation. Okay. But let's start by breathing and just focusing on our breath. So if everyone could join me and just take a really deep, enriching breath in through your nose and then release it. We'll do that again. And as you breathe in, count for 3 to yourself. So in and then out for 3. One more, in and release. And now continue breathing on your own and just bring your attention and awareness to your breath, as I'm also guiding you to think about the people and folks in your life that you're meeting with. And particularly think about someone that you're trying to impact change. You're trying to bring them to a better decision that gives them advancement in their life or work. And as you continue to breathe in and out, slow breaths, I'd like you to just picture them right now. What are they doing at this moment? What fears, anxieties might they have? And I'd like you to try to inhabit that for a second in your own compassion, in your own self. Try to bring that into your body and feel for a second what they might be feeling with this challenge. And now, continuing to take those deep breaths, I'd like you to think about not yourself and your product, but continue to think about them, but think about how you're able to give them progress. As you're inhabiting the feelings and anxieties that they might be going through, I'd like you to think about what that feels like to have them released, at least partially released through your service, through your work, through your intention to care for them, through your product, through your service, how that's giving them some lift and advancement against that priority, against that challenge. And now feel what that feels like to have that pressure released. Okay. And now, as you're able to start to bring your awareness back to me and the rest of the group here in the slides that we're going to conclude with, and take a moment to reflect on what that intention setting does for you internally and what that can do for you if you were to do it before your next meeting with that person. Okay. So that's really the rub, y'all. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. If anyone has a comment or a question about that, I'd love to talk about that with you because I think that's really the key to this preparation is that if you're doing that, I think you're going to see more results. To recap, this is sort of our flow that we're trying to get into for our sales meetings. First is to bring ourselves in awareness. We live in this kind of frenetic world where we're constantly moving and even in the course of this, you saw we had some tech challenges and I was getting text messages and calls and all things were coming in. And it's very hard to let all that drop to the side and to bring myself into awareness of what's happening. Me right now trying to connect through the internet to people and help them get progress. That's what we're trying to do. That's my intention. So once I've centered that, I then start to think and try to put myself in your shoes. I'm seeing the people and the attendees here, and I'm looking and I'm thinking about your businesses and your practices and how you might be able to get that advancement. I know the challenges at some level I've connected with many of you and some people I haven't, but I know that you have various things you're trying to achieve. And my goal is to try to understand that and to connect with you on that. And that connection forming is the basis for a potential interaction that would give you progress that would be of value to you. And that's what I'm trying to do and what I did before we started this session. Now, all of this leads to performance. So we're not doing this just, this is a tough one to talk about because it's not, why are we doing this? We're doing this because it works. And we're not doing, and at the same time, we're doing it because it's the right thing to do. It's good and it feels good. So when we do these things, it should feel good inside you and it should feel good to the other people and have a chance to form real things, real connections, not just commercial transactional ones. So that's the point. But at the same time, I guarantee you, if you connect and care in this way, you're going to have more luck and you're going to create more luck for yourself and advance your own ability to perform in the world. And I think that should be the case, right? People that are doing the right thing should have more success. So again, it's you may also find that people don't you help them in ways that aren't monetary, but I think that's also a win, right? So seeing a couple chats coming too. Thank you. Yes, yes, absolutely. Compassion is a unique value proposition. So that's it, y'all. I would love to hear your questions. Let me give you a quick just preview of next sessions. It'll be in 2 weeks. We're going to talk about then is the actual sales encounter. So all of this was around preparing for the sales meeting. When you actually get into the presentation or when you're meeting with somebody, that's where curiosity comes in. So it's still a mindfulness practice, but it's about really centering the customer and learning and listening and leading with exploration and not an agenda. So oftentimes in sales, if you've ever talked to somebody in a sales encounter where they're having all these leading questions and they're trying to almost trap you and convince you to do something, and you feel like you're almost being set up like a lawyer that's trying to make a case, that's we want to throw that out. That's not the kind of sales we want to do. When we're engaging with our customers and asking questions, we want those questions to be legitimate inquiries and something where we're actually trying to learn and not just try to make a point or try to trap them. So that's coming up. I'd love to have you there. This is all about customer orientation. Each step of the way, we're listening to the customer and letting them be our focal point, our lodestar. Okay. So again, this is how this all fits together. So starting with compassion, leading to curiosity, and then finally courage, which will be the final segment of our time, which is thinking about how do we draw people forward in our Just checking the chats here, making sure we're missing anything. Any Q&A, any other questions that I'm missing? I appreciate the chats that came through. But anything else? While I do that, let me flash the last slide, I think, which is, yeah, if you want to reach out and talk, here's a sign up. You can just point your phone at the camera at the QR code, or just reach out over phone or email. Any other questions or thoughts here as we close up, or comments on how the intention setting worked for you?
I have a quick one that might be helpful to others.
Yeah,
When
her
you're
yeah, go ahead.
when you're in meetings back to back, what is your best practice for setting the intention in a limited amount of time?
So if I had less time to prepare and I was back to back, I mean, it's funny, I have right here, this is kind of wacky, but I have this candle, and sometimes if I literally have 10 seconds, I'll light a candle. And it seems silly, but what I'm trying to do is just try to change the energy or environment in some way. That I was doing one thing, and then that act of and focusing on one thing allows me to reset into a new place. You see this often where someone's in a back-to-back Zoom and they're still looking at the last meeting, they're still in the last meeting. And so creating that um, physical action of lighting a candle, it's sort of arbitrary, it's kind of silly, but what it does is it allows me to say, oh, okay, I'm now entering a new chapter. What was over there is going to come, we're going to come back to that, but right now we're moving on. This is incredibly important for people that have a lot of different, where their day feels very disjointed, which I guess is probably all of us. So that's one practice. And I think what you heard from Rick Rubin, setting a quick intention to make your higher self reach and connect to the other higher self, just picturing that image, literally of, I mean, it sounds super weird, but picturing myself floating above me and hugging and embracing the person in a spiritual sense, not in a weird, creepy physical sense, but in a mental sense of trying to connect to their soul. I think that is a very quick practice, but it just changes the dynamic so that when I come into it, I'm no longer thinking about the last thing or trying to fight the last battle, but I'm really saying my attention is on you. I'm focusing on you. We live in the battle for attention right now, and so to the extent we can decide where our attention's going, I'm not looking at this phone. I'm not looking over there. I'm focusing on you. That I think is a key. I thought I heard another question come through, or someone was trying to jump in. So let me shut up and see if there was another one. Thank you. I heard thanks for the positive comments here. Anything else, y'all? Cool. Well, let's conclude it. I'll hang out for a second if there are any other questions, but if not, I'll let y'all go, and thank you so much. Appreciate it.